Story 1. The Human Centipede, 2009. Imagine this. You wake up in a blindingly white room. Everything is silent, so silent you can hear your own heartbeat. Your body feels numb, your eyelids heavy after being drugged. And then, through the dim light, a man steps forward with a cold smile. He doesn't introduce himself as a doctor, nor as an ordinary kidnapper. He simply says that you will become part of the greatest artwork in the world. This isn't a nightmare born from imagination. It's the premise of one of the most controversial films in cinema history, The Human Centipede, 2009, a movie banned in multiple countries, branded as a cinematic nightmare, yet simultaneously hailed as a cult horror phenomenon. Audiences dared to watch, not out of curiosity, but to confront humanity's most primal fear. But what made this film so horrifying that it was deemed unfit for screening? And why, despite universal condemnation, did it still attract a disturbingly loyal following? The Human Centipede was the creation of Dutch director Tom Six, whose idea was so insane that countless studios refused to fund it. Six later admitted that his obsession came from imagining twisted punishments for sex offenders, and he wanted to turn that dark fantasy into cinematic art. The story follows Dr. Hyder, a once-renowned surgeon who becomes obsessed with the idea of surgically connecting humans to create a perfect living organism. His victims, 3 young tourists who awaken in his cold laboratory, only to realize their fate, to be stitched together, mouth to rectum, forming a single grotesque creature, the Human Centipede. From the moment it premiered, the audience was in shock. There was no need for excessive gore. The concept alone was enough to churn stomachs. The chilling scene where Dr. Hyder calmly lectures his victims using an anatomical diagram, explaining how he'll connect them. The surgical moment, the stitching of mouth to flesh, a brief glimpse that haunted viewers for weeks. And the sheer despair of the middle victim, trapped, helpless, neither alive nor dead, sustaining and being sustained in the most horrifying way imaginable. Some audience members walked out mid-screening, others vomited. Critics labeled it a depraved cinematic experiment rather than a film. Several countries across Europe and Asia banned it entirely. Others allowed it only after censoring more than 30% of its content, leaving the story fragmented and incoherent. Yet ironically, that censorship only fueled its fame. Bootleg copies spread rapidly across the internet. Viewers didn't watch for the plot, they watched to test themselves. Can I endure this nightmare? The more it was forbidden, the more infamous it became, turning into an underground legend. It was discussed on talk shows, parodied in games, and referenced across pop culture. Rumors spread that the film was banned not merely for its grotesque imagery, but because it echoed real wartime atrocities, unethical medical experiments conducted during Nazi Germany. Some researchers claimed that Tom Six had drawn inspiration from these dark chapters of history, reimagining them as modern horror. Audiences became divided. The opposition called it a crime against cinema, harmful to the human psyche, especially to young viewers. The defenders saw it as the ultimate expression of extreme horror, a challenge to the limits of fear and disgust. Some even confessed to months of lingering trauma, nightmares, loss of appetite, and inability to be alone. But The Human Centipede is more than a horror film. It's a mirror reflecting the thin line between creativity and madness. It forces us to question. When art no longer seeks to inspire or teach, but only to shock, is it still art? It also exposes humanity's obsession with control and dominance. When one person believes they can turn others into tools and transform suffering into art, that's no longer medicine or creativity. That's the decay of the human soul. Even if we remind ourselves it's just a movie, the revulsion and fear stay with us. Because the most horrifying monsters aren't from another world. They're human. Story 2. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. London, 1970 seconds. Inside a dim neon-lit bar, strange melodies echo through the haze. A group of young men dressed in white, bowler hats tilted low, sip on milk laced with drugs. They don't talk about music. They don't talk about the future. They talk about how to spread violence. This is the world that visionary director Stanley Kubrick created in one of the most controversial masterpieces in cinematic history. A Clockwork Orange, 1971, a film hailed as genius by some and demonic by others. It was so divisive that it was banned in its own homeland, the United Kingdom, for nearly 30 years. But how can a work of art become a collective nightmare? Based on the novel by Anthony Burgess, Kubrick's adaptation wasn't just a movie, it was a future nightmare brought to life. A world where violence, lust, and moral decay have become entertainment. The story follows Alex DeLarge, a brilliant young man who loves art, especially Beethoven, yet finds ecstasy in what he calls ultraviolence. Together with his gang of droogs, he roams the streets at night, robbing, beating, even raping, all done with laughter and delight, as if cruelty itself were a form of recreation. Upon release, the film shocked the world. The infamous home invasion scene. Alex brutally assaults a woman while gleefully singing "Singin' in the Rain." The contrast between cheerful music and horrific violence made audiences shudder, a chilling depiction of how easily brutality can be normalized. The attack on a homeless man. Senseless, emotionless, a crime without motive done purely for pleasure. The Ludovico experiment. After his arrest, Alex is chosen for an experimental treatment meant to cure him. Forced to watch violent imagery while injected with drugs that induce pain, he becomes physically incapable of violence, but at the cost of his free will. And that's where the moral dilemma begins. If a criminal is stripped of his ability to choose, is he still human? The controversy exploded. Many accused the film of glorifying the very violence it depicted. In the UK, a series of copycat crimes, assaults eerily resembling scenes from the movie, triggered a national uproar. The press blamed Kubrick, claiming he had inspired a generation of violent youth. The backlash grew so intense that Kubrick himself requested Warner Brothers to withdraw the film from UK distribution. For nearly 3 decades, A Clockwork Orange could only be watched through bootleg tapes, turning it into a forbidden legend. Yet, even in exile, the film's influence spread like wildfire. Scholars, critics, and fans continued to debate its meaning. Political interpretation, a warning against totalitarian governments willing to sacrifice individual freedom for social order. Religious allegory, Alex as a symbol of original sin, and the Ludovico method as a form of punishment without redemption. Psychological lens, a question of nature versus nurture. Is human evil born within us, or created by society's repression? Some even claimed Kubrick deliberately designed the film to cause psychological discomfort, crafting scenes that were visually beautiful, yet morally disturbing, forcing viewers into an uneasy fascination. Despite the ban, A Clockwork Orange became a cultural icon. The white outfit, bowler hat, and single false eyelash of Alex became one of cinema's most recognizable looks. Its influence seeped into music videos, fashion, and visual art. Countless directors later admitted they were inspired by Kubrick's bold, unsettling vision. But beyond its aesthetic legacy, the film posed haunting questions. We dream of a society without crime. But if that means stripping away free will, is it truly better? Is a reformed monster, robbed of choice, any less dangerous or simply a hollow machine pretending to be good? A Clockwork Orange wasn't just a violent movie. It was a social experiment, captured on film, a mirror reflecting the fragility of morality and freedom. Kubrick's message endures. The greatest danger isn't violence itself. It's the system that tries to erase it by erasing what makes us human. Story 3. The Evil Dead, 2013. A lonely cabin deep in the woods. No neighbors, no roads. Only darkness, whispering winds, and the damp scent of rotting earth. 5 friends arrive, hoping to help a young woman overcome her drug addiction. They believe isolation will save her, but what they don't know is that this place hides something far darker than addiction, a deadly curse waiting to wake. As night falls, in the basement, they find an ancient book bound in human skin, filled with cryptic symbols. One of them reads aloud from its pages, and within minutes, the darkness stirs. An ancient evil is unleashed, spreading terror that cannot be stopped. This is The Evil Dead, 2013, the remake of a legendary horror franchise. But unlike the 1981 original, this version pushes brutality and gore to the absolute extreme, so much that many countries declared it too violent to be screened. The original Evil Dead, directed by Sam Raimi in 1981, became a cult classic. Over 30 years later, the 2013 version sought to resurrect that legacy, darker, bloodier, and far more intense. The story seems simple at first. 5 friends travel to an abandoned cabin to help Mia, a young woman trying to quit drugs. In the basement, they discover the mysterious Necronomicon Ex Mortis, the Book of the Dead. When one of them reads its cursed words aloud, they unknowingly summon a bloodthirsty demon that dwells within the forest. From that moment on, hell descends. Mia becomes possessed, and one by one, her friends are transformed into horrifying deadites, grotesque half-human, half-demon creatures. It's no wonder The Evil Dead, 2013, was banned in multiple countries. The film is drenched in violence, pushing the human body to its limits. The arm-severing scene. A possessed victim forced to cut off her own arm to stop the infection. The sound of bone snapping and flesh tearing left viewers breathless. The tongue-splitting scene. A girl licks a blade, slicing her tongue in two. Her blank stare burned into the audience's memory. The final blood rain. In the climactic battle, when the ultimate demon appears, the sky opens and it rains blood. Mia must wield a chainsaw, fighting for her life in a storm of crimson. Some viewers fled the theater, others fainted. Psychologists even warned that the film could cause trauma or shock in sensitive audiences. After its release, the movie divided the world. Opponents, countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and parts of Europe, labeled it too violent for release. Some demanded over 40 minutes of cuts, gutting the story entirely. Supporters, horror fans, hailed it as one of the best gore horror films of the decade. Brutal, uncompromising, yet faithful to the spirit of the original. Its promotional slogan became legendary: "The most terrifying film you will ever experience." Rumors soon spread that certain details were inspired by real occult rituals. Though the Necronomicon is fictional, it draws from ancient legends about books of resurrection. Superstitious fans even claimed that reciting the film's incantations aloud could accidentally open a spiritual gate. On online forums, fans debated, were deadites real? Some insisted they'd heard folklore about spirits in the forest that possess human bodies. Others saw the film as a metaphor that Mia's battle with the demon represents her struggle with addiction. The evil isn't just supernatural, it's psychological. Controversial as it was, The Evil Dead, 2013, became a cornerstone of modern horror, reviving the gore genre and introducing a new generation to the terror of Evil Dead. Its infamous scenes, the blood rain, the chainsaw, The possessed faces live on in pop culture, echoed in music videos, TV shows, and video games. But The Evil Dead, 2013, is more than a film about demons. It's about confronting the darkest part of ourselves, the raw fear of blood, decay, and the shadows within our own mind. Behind the carnage lies a message. Sometimes, to overcome the darkness, we must face it head-on. For Mia, defeating the demon wasn't just survival. It was redemption, a metaphor for reclaiming her life from addiction. We've now explored 3 of the most controversial, banned films in history, each one forcing us to ask, where is the line between art and obscenity? If you enjoy uncovering the dark corners of cinematic history, don't scroll away. Subscribe, share this with a fellow horror fan, and join the discussion in the comments. Because your voice keeps this channel alive.